that makes it even the more surprising that Jonthan is this bent out of shape that he didn't win and that he was that surprised that he lost at the end. I can't believe it. Can you? Survivor 50 in the hands of the fans just wrapped up last week. And did it end with a bang like the season was hyped up to be, or did it end in a whimper? Here to help me break it all down is my pal, Evan. Evan, how are you doing after that 3-hour Survivor 50 finale?
I wish it wasn't 3 hours. That was probably number one. They could have squeezed it in two easily, but it was just as painful as we had kind of envisioned. 3 or 4 episodes behind the finale, we kind of saw this coming. It was not as painful as it could have been because we were prepared for it. But I can't say I'm happy. I can't say I'm happy with it.
I think we could start there. I think my biggest gripe to start with the finale was that it was 3 hours long. I thought at first I was going to enjoy how they did the live reunion because I'm personally not a huge fan of the live reunions. I usually kind of skip that bit, but it ended up not being a good part of the show, and Jeff obviously ends up spoiling the show. What did you think about how they handled the live reunion?
Well, they handled it like they haven't done it in a while. And that's
Yeah.
the reason why Jeff kind of screwed up big time, sending Rizzo over to the jury seat before it even happened on fire making. There were some good moments. I liked that they gave away the car.
I like that they gave away the car, but did Aubrey deserve the car? Did she
No,
need
she
the
did not
car?
deserve the car. She didn't deserve everything she got. No, but
She did not need the car. Like, this is the season of in the hands of the fans. They had to have known we're giving away a car. We got this sponsorship deal. Let's put it in the hands of the fans because they're already going to vote for Cirie to be the fan favorite. So why can't we vote for like a second fan favorite to give the truck to? You know what I'm saying?
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I would have liked to see it handled that way rather than them just giving it to the winner at the end. But still, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still glad that Survivor 50 had this much hype around it because, we have been talking about this season for years. I'm still okay with it.
Survivor 50 needed its hype for the finale that we were given, I think, for a ending that seemed inevitable, starting with the beginning of this finale where we had what I think was the best challenge maybe in the history of Survivor, and Jonthan ends up winning, which ultimately sends Tiffany home at final five.
It's interesting because they, had cut to Jonthan on that challenge throwing up over the side of the challenge. And I'm thinking, wow, like he can't even make it. So at that point, I thought Tiff was going to bring it home.
Tiffany, man, she had a lot of win equity there heading into the finale. And I was pulling for Tiff there at the end because if Tiffany gets to the end with the two that Aubrey ends up getting to the end with, or if she gets to the end with Aubrey, man, I think she wins this game.
Even in a scenario where Rizzo is part of the final three, I still kind of like her chances there. Once it was final five, she was all of a sudden target numero uno. I mean, we knew that she probably had to win back-to-back challenges at the end to be able to sit in the final three.
I think you're 100% right. And then when we get to the final four and we got Samotion and Aubrey buys this competition in preparation that this might be the final four challenge, and she smokes it and she wins. I got to tell you, Evan, I had a gut feeling coming into this that she was going to win because just the a big problem I think from Christian Hubicki's elimination on was just the heavy-handed editing in Aubrey's favor. And I know I get it that you need to tell the story from the ultimate winner's perspective, but we haven't had this heavy-handed of a winner edit, I don't think, since D in season 46.
They probably did a good job at hiding it a little bit until Cirie and Ozzy went home. I couldn't fully tell until that point, but then at that point I was sold. Especially looking back on it now, a couple of the edits, it would have definitely made sense. And you had been telling me that a couple times during our discussions about the season over the last 3 months.
I do everything in my power to avoid spoilers. Come to find out, this was the most spoiled season maybe ever. Betting markets like Kalshi, 75% of the money was on Aubrey to win before the season even started, and nobody had even more than, I think, 5% to win the game. That makes it even the more surprising that Jonthan is this bent out of shape that he didn't win, and that he was that surprised that he lost at the end. I can't believe it. Can you?
I can't. I mean, Jonthan even skipped the red carpet post-game interviews there.
Me and Evan both come from sports writing backgrounds. We've dealt with pissy coaches before, and they still do their interviews. Jonthan is a reality TV star who just won $100,000, played one of the best Survivor games in the modern era strategically, and denied the press. How do you do that? When they revealed the votes, like, I haven't seen somebody that surprised that they've lost, I don't think, since Russell Hantz. Like, he was like almost in tears. Like, everybody knew Aubrey was winning, and like, you had to have been watching the episodes leading up to this, and like the edits.
Exactly.
I couldn't believe it. I felt so bad for him because, I was a big Jonthan defender. Evan knows I was, talking his game up very heavily. He didn't have any of that strategic chops. The first time that he played the game, he was the main strategic voice in this season. I mean, other than Cirie, obviously Cirie was the main strategic voice, but Jonthan was a close second, and he got blindsided a couple times. And what was impressive is that he bounced back and was still able to push his agenda. But the problem was, and Tiffany laid it out perfectly for him, Aubrey has the perfect story arc. It was almost probably just as dangerous, not in really my eyes per se, but just as dangerous as allowing Cirie to get to the end almost, no matter what kind of game she played. If she got to the end, people were going to want to give her the money just because she's Aubrey. You're only a two-time player. It doesn't matter what kind of moves you made. They were going to give it to Aubrey, like you said, just because of the narrative arc. But, in Jonthan's case, he still loses to Tiffany, though.
Yeah, I mean, probably, but he's got way more of a chance against Tiffany than he ever does against Aubrey. And especially in that setting at the end, that's when you could really have to, because then if everybody's just a two-time player, then there's no like Aubrey bias on the jury, really. Tiff had played a good game, but I still think Jonthan would, I mean, he was more in control than Tiffany was for the majority of the game. I mean, he had a chance against Tiffany.
The problem is that Cirie and Dee are the most important voices on the jury. They were super anti-Jonthan. So they were never going to be pro-Jonthan. So I think they were always going to be able to be in the favor of like a Tiffany. And I even think they would be kind of a leading charge for like a Rizzo if he got into the end against Jonthan. I think he probably would even lose to Rizzo at the end. Not to take anything away from Rizzo, we'll get into that too, but I think Rizzo played a solid game as well. But Jonthan, I don't think had a winning scenario since Stephenie LaGrossa was still in the game.
I mean, it did feel that way deep down. Even after he had played a good game, it just kind of felt like no matter how good of a game he played, he was never going to win this season. Right around that Stephenie LaGrossa vote, like you were saying.
I think what we should talk about next, because we talked about Final Four a little bit. Aubrey practiced for this competition. She wins this competition. And we get into fire making, and Jeff spoils it. I skipped through this moment because I was just kind of skipping through moments of the finale. And then I noticed that Cirie said, "We haven't done fire making yet." And I had to go back to like watch the moment in full. I think this was an all-time bad moment for reality TV. This goes back to the 3-hour finale being a slog to get through. The Aubrey win felt inevitable, right? She wins some motion. That basically from there locks the Aubrey win. You kind of have what is kind of the only fun thing left, because you have Rizzo going up against Jonthan. Both of them lost in fire, so that's like kind of a fun little storyline. Who's going to earn their way to the finale from, one of their survivor scars. And then we get to the reunion, and Probst just spoils the ending, and that is the last remaining bit of anticipation in the survivor finale for the fans. And we have to go through like an hour and a half, 2 hours of slog.
That was the remaining question of the season there.
And it was all downhill from there. But I will say, I think another piece of interesting meat to on the bone here was final tribal council, and how these players were going to handle themselves at final tribal council, even though the vote seemed like they were locked in and we knew where they were going to go.
It was more interesting than a lot of the new era jury sit downs. At one point, I didn't even know who Emily was going to vote for because she was asking everybody questions.
And not only were they asking good questions, but it brought a lot from an entertainment perspective, like Cirie just randomly casting shade onto Joe for seemingly no reason. I know she gave like maybe one or two confessionals where she said, it feels like we had to babysit Joe, but like I don't recall them ever having that much beef. And then she was just like, well, how come we had to babysit you all season long, Joe? And then it's like, wow, we really going at Joe. And
Well,
and then and then Stephenie
well,
LaGrossa.
I remember. I mean, he had said after that, "Oh, I understand. I understand about the babysitting." So he knows exactly. Like he said it to the jury. He's like, "Oh, I understand where you're coming from about having to babysit me." So he doesn't deny it, bro. So
No, no, and and Joe Joe is an anomaly, bro. Like, can we just talk about Joe for a second? Like, he on paper, not if you don't know anything about his game and you just know his stats, he's one of the best Survivor players to ever play the game. I mean, he's gotten to the end twice. He's only had one vote casted against him, and I'm sure, like, all told, probably has like 6 immunity wins. Like, he's a beast, but he's hard to deal with. And even though he's hard to deal with, like players complained about Joe maybe more than anybody. He still only had one vote cast against him. He still, didn't get voted out. He was a pariah most of the time, and people still would have to like run votes through him. And it's like Emily made that point that like no, and Emily was to your point, like Emily was defending his game more than Joe was defending his own game during Final Tribal Council. Uh, when the votes were getting run through Joe, just to not make him mad, they didn't even need to do that necessarily because it's not like Joe was gonna flip a vote. Like, he was kind of a lone wolf out there, so I don't really get the need to run everything by Joe, but they did it anyway. I don't get. I
yeah,
didn't get that.
and then somehow he's getting credit for having that happen, like at Final Tribal. I'm like, it really wasn't much of anything the whole time.
Well, and I think a big thing was that they're probably doing it as a form of jury management in case he did get voted out. So they're like, "Hey, we included you in all these votes, so you vote for me to win because I included you on all the
Yeah,
votes." You know what I'm saying?
it's not a bad strategy.
Stephenie LaGrossa and her questions at Final Tribal
Yes.
that wasn't even a question at all. She straight up was just glazing Jonthan for a solid whatever 2 minutes maybe, and didn't even get to a question. And Chrissy was Jonthan's biggest defender throughout the entire Final Tribal Council, and those were going to be votes no matter what. But I feel like that almost hurt Jonthan's final tribal performance because even though, um, like I said, people like Emily stepped up for Joe and was able to speak for Joe during final tribal council. And that was never going to garner Joe any votes, but it did kind of help people maybe see Joe's game in a different light. Stephenie and Chrissy glazing Jonthan is doing him a disservice because it's not allowing him to tell what game he played, and it's not allowing him to like own the moves that he did. Instead, Chrissy and Stephenie are talking over each other about how amazing he is, and he's not able to own his own game.
Well, I mean, he would. I think he still had some chances to do that. He didn't make the greatest pitch I've ever seen, but he also did get his 2 cents in. I mean, it didn't really matter what he was going to say, anyway.
We had a conversation before, and it was I think around maybe when Christian was voted out, where I told you I was like, I don't know how Jonthan does it, but he needs to get Joe on the jury because he needs another vote that's automatically locked somewhere because he just doesn't
Yeah.
have it. He just doesn't have it. It points to perhaps maybe a bigger issue with Survivor and reality TV as a whole. I think Aubrey deserved to win Survivor 50. But man, it's tough though. The floater game has won too many seasons of Survivor, too many seasons of Big Brother, and being an active game player, being good TV, being somebody that goes out and dictates the direction of the game has become less valuable as a
Yeah.
winning game.
Being social with other players outside of the game will get you far, especially on an all returnees season. It's a little bit different when we're having a fresh cast. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
still some game players that end up winning it. Like D is a good example of that. So I'm not too worried about it, Trebe, but it
Mm-hmm.
was a little annoying that there was just no way that a good game player like Jonthan was going to beat Aubrey in the end.
I think Aubrey did all the right things in terms of earning the votes that she got.
That's
Because,
true.
her and Cirie were enemies at the end of the game, but Cirie had nothing but positive feelings for Aubrey when she walked out of the game. And that's a credit to her. Aubrey and D, I don't even think I think they only spent one day together on the island. And D hated Jonthan enough to give Aubrey the vote. I don't think that's one of the votes where I'm kind of like, that's out of spite. That's bitterness. I guess unless you're gonna just sit there and say Aubrey gave just the best final tribal performance of a lifetime that just moved D. I don't believe that. I think that
That's
was a
not true.
completely anti-Jonthan vote, 100%. And then Tiffany, you throw her in there. She hated Aubrey
Yeah.
and Jonthan. I think that was between who she disliked the most or the least. When she left, she had a particularly bad taste in her mouth for Jonthan because of what they said that they needed to get rid of her because the records for female immunities was 4. And she said, "Why don't we get rid of Joe? He has 3 immunities." And he said the record for women is 4. And that got Tiffany hot. I see what Jonthan's trying to say, but no matter what he was going to say there, it was going to come off as disingenuous and, a little bit sexist just because that's how they're going to view him automatically for being the kind of guy that he is. And that's a big thing with Jonthan, too, is a perception and how he looks, man. I hate to say it, but it's hard. Rob Cesarino said it to him in his exit interview. Is like, just people like to root for the underdog, and with him being how the big strong guy, he's going up against Aubrey, who has played 3 times, is an underdog. Isn't it just almost automatic?
Yeah, it's automatic. It's automatic. That's just how it goes.
All right, now that we recap the finale, we're going to talk about the season as a whole for a little bit and talk about the good and the bad. I know for most of that, we were kind of being a little bit critical of Survivor 50, but at the end of the day, me and Evan, we were watching and we were talking about it. We weren't just talking about it on the days that the episode aired, we were talking about it throughout the week, trying to dissect who the winner was going to be, looking through the edit, really trying to break things down. I would send Evan player rankings at the end of every single week to try to figure things out. So it did have us hooked, line, and sinker. So we are going to go over some good things from the season. It felt like a celebration of Survivor. It felt like a big deal.
I loved how a lot of those OG players got to go really far in this game. We got to see a full game from a lot of our favorites, and that was, I think, the best part for me.
There was a lot of callbacks to old seasons. I really enjoyed that. I mean, like right off the bat, when Coach and Ozzy had their rivalry, we got South Pacific callbacks, Evan's favorite season. Uh, and and you mentioned it, every longtime character that every time that their torch got snuffed, we kind of got a pretty epic send off for them, and Jeff kind of being like, "What does Survivor mean to you?" And they're like, "Oh man, this was just the best times of my life, and I wanted to do it for my kids. I did
Yeah.
it for myself at first, but now I do it for my kids."
And I think what was fun was I accused you of being too podcasty multiple times this season, And what it came down to was the boot order. And
Yes.
that was our main gripe with one another this year was the boot order. But it was around episode 5 or 6 when I remember you saying, "Okay, I think the boot order is going to get really bad now." But then it was another 2, 3, 4 episodes, and my favorites are still alive, and I was hounding Trebe about this. I think that was by far the best thing that happened.
But then it was like Evan's funeral every single
But
week
after
with
that, it
Coach
was
going
it was it
home,
was.
Ozzy going home, Christian going home.
I think when Christian went home, that's when I was like, okay, the boot order it's over now. It's over on the
Yeah.
boot order.
Well, Kyle getting eliminated basically changed the whole trajectory of Survivor 50. It would have been completely different. The Loyal and Integrity group probably would have made it so much further. Genevieve was an all-time screw. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the boot order in the early days, those were my two kind of favorites coming in that I really wanted to see do well. And you know, really a thorn in my side when they didn't do well and Evan was dancing on my grave.
And then you were also like a fan of Camilla a little bit. And that was about to be the crew, it seemed like, was Kyle, Genevieve, Camilla. Joe was also in there as well. Colby was working with them. I mean, that
Yeah.
could have been a really powerful group there if Kyle
What
had
could
not gone down.
what could have been, and then our other favorite, Ozzy, basically single-handedly was the reason Aubrey Bracco is our winner of season 50. If he plays his idol, Aubrey goes home. It's a different, whole game if these things happen with our favorites. But we end up with Aubrey Bracco as the winner, who I'll talk for me personally. I think Evan has also been an outspoken disliker of Aubrey Bracco in the past. We got Aubrey Bracco fatigue for a long time. And even 10 years off, I was not a fan. She was moping right away, just like she always did. And then she had beef with my favorite, Genevieve. And then, and she ends up winning. So that 50 kind of felt like a slog to me.
I do have to apologize to you a little bit with your Genevieve pick. I do see exactly where she was kind of headed. We have also talked about her being the most screwed player on the season. Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard in Survivor 50, Tree.
I really enjoyed the second chance players we got on this season, and I hope a good chunk of them come back. Jonthan, Tiff, and Rizzo.
Rizzo is definitely. I would love to see him back at some point. I
We got to
think.
go like 4 years without him, though. We got to wait a little
Yeah,
bit on
I
Rizzo.
was I was just about to say you got to let that one marinate for a while before you bring him back. Every episode for the last 2 seasons, it's a record, right?
RIZGOD, baby. Ozzy, Cirie, and Coach, despite me not being excited for them personally to come back, except for Coach, I was pretty jazzed for Coach to come back. Ozzy and Cirie, we've had them before. I wasn't necessarily too excited for them, but they were some of the best parts of season 50, and I really enjoyed having them back.
I mean, when the Survivor 50 cast dropped, I wasn't super hyped that all three of those were going to come back. I definitely liked to see the names, but from a gameplay standpoint, I was definitely on the fence. But as soon as Survivor 50 started getting closer and closer, I started really getting hyped, and I was like, you know what? Why do I not want to see Cirie come back for another run? And she gave us another big run, and I totally wasn't expecting Ozzy to change and let somebody else run the game for him. I mean, I mean, he's still playing with a couple of screws loose and ended up botching the entire game for us. But you
Yeah,
love to see it. And Coach was never brought back to
yeah.
play Survivor. He just was there to give us the haikus in the hammock and all the other fun stuff. And then it was as soon as he was shipped off, I was okay with where he went. I didn't expect him to win the game.
Celebrity involvement. It just seemed like, other than Zach Brown, who was probably the worst of it all, that I did not enjoy, I just don't think that they were very committed to the bit. Billie Eilish was asked about the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol, and she like rolled her eyes at it, like, oh yeah, my team told me to do it. And it's like, why are we doing all of these celebrity things if they don't even care about it, Evan?
It was tough hearing Billie Eilish say that. I always was like, why is Billie Eilish a part of this season somehow? And I knew there wasn't going to be any true involvement but I still didn't expect it to absolutely do nothing. I mean, the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol was the biggest flop of the season, hands
That
down.
was
I
next. That was next for me. Yeah, go on about it. Why was it so bad?
The thing that irked me the most about them, besides the fact that it was the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol and that you had to send it to someone else when you found it, that you couldn't play it for other players. It's just kind of nerfs the idol too much. I like idols. I like it when people play them for other people. That was the biggest part of it that I didn't like. Even when it was
Yeah,
over.
that's a good point, especially because I had forgot that Rizzo's idol that he had the whole entire time was a Billie Eilish boomerang idol, so he couldn't use it on anybody else to make a big splashy move at the final five. Not that I think that he would have done that, but that was something that may have been in the cards, but he couldn't do it because of Billie Eilish. Of course, I didn't like it because Genevieve finds two idols in season 50 and doesn't even get to use a single one of them. As soon as they did a 17-person merge, every single person figured out about the boomerang mechanic. Every single person figured out who gifted the idols to who, and then everybody figured out who had the idols. So every single, little mechanic that made this boomerang idol was almost made null and void the second that a merge happened. And the problem with a lot of these twists and advantages, which I have as just a negative overall, is that it seemed like they were designed for their absolute ceiling and not whether they would work consistently as mechanics in the game. Like, I think the Mr. Beast coin is the greatest example of that. Obviously, it lands on heads. Devins gets to increase the prize pot to 2 million. But if this lands on the torch, we're talking about this moment as one of the worst moments in the history of Survivor. And that's how all of these twists felt, is
Yeah.
that at their absolute ceiling, they could be magnificent, but on the floor, they're very, very, very bad.
Well, I think that's a good way to put it, considering the Mr. Beast coin, because
Yeah.
that was a major topic after that episode had aired. The next day, I'm thinking if that coin doesn't flip to heads, then I'm so pissed, and that's the worst
Yeah.
episode that I've ever seen. Like I would
Yeah.
never forgive them.
Christian Hubicki, his twist, he has to cast a vote for himself, which I think is just terrible, and that's direct production interference. And that's a twist that should not happen ever. I think at the best thing that he would have got out of that was like a block a vote, which is like a weaker version of a steal a vote. So you're telling me that the ceiling is a worse steal a vote, and the floor is you cast a vote against yourself.
Those type of things dictated a lot of what happened. Rizzo just played his idol at the final four, final five, or whatever. It was the most non-climactic idol play ever, and he had it
Yeah.
the whole season. He's just holding on to it, and like you said about the Genevieve, when she sent the boomerang to Ozzy, she's probably thinking that he's gonna do something stupid, and then she'd get the idol back, which he ended up doing, but
Yeah.
instead it's like that idol just went to complete waste. It did nothing for the season. So you're just
And
ended,
even
and then you had Stephanie's steal a vote that she ended up getting, or the extra vote that she had from going on one of those journeys. Played it,
yeah.
did nothing.
Yeah, I think the only advantage that ended up working was Cirie's steal a vote.
Yeah, that saved her for one more day. The steal
Yeah.
vote was played correctly.
On Genevieve sending the idol to Ozzy, it makes it even worse still because she was a part of, a worse twist with the Blood Moon. Like almost every
Yeah.
player except for Camilla on this Blood Moon really got swap screwed. And Genevieve to an extreme extent. Colby as well. But Colby, I mean, man, he was injured. He was washed. He was pretty much done. You know,
He was
he was
good.
he was good on that. He was out, but Genevieve had so much game left in her, and she couldn't even do it. All the twists I think were really the bad part, and that brings me to my I think second to last bad thing is that I get this was in the hands of the fans, and they voted for dynamic gameplay, but what really irritated me in this is that I feel like the casual fans won in the hands of the fans, and it felt like none of the things that the diehard fans would have wanted in this season won. So it really felt like everything that they would have voted, everything that they voted for, I was against. So it didn't feel like it was in the hands of the fans. throughout the season for me.
No, it never did. And it ended up kind of being a slap in the face as the season went on that this is not what the fans have voted on. And the fact, I mean, the cast was the one thing we cared about the most, that we should have some say in there too.
The worst part of it is that we also didn't get like any accountability either. Like, show me the numbers for real. Like, you're just saying the numbers, and I'm just supposed to believe you.
Yeah, there no, it, it was a lot of that, and I loved that Jeff didn't even say what the percentage was on the finale when they were talking about the live reunion show. It's like,
Yeah,
give me the numbers for this at least.
yeah.
I want to know if it was an 80-20 split, but I don't care what percentage of the fans chose this immunity necklace. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are kind of my major gripes with the season. And honestly, and those were kind of the major things that kind of plagued Survivor 50 throughout, and it's kind of plagued really the fabric of Survivor since the new era, which kind of brings me to Survivor 51, the open era, Evan. Uh,
The open
I
era.
have no idea what this means. If every twist is on the table, it sounds like it's gonna be a lot, and it sounds like it's gonna be just a mess overall. Lots of twists and lots of twist screws, I imagine.
And I don't know how they could do anything more than they did this. Wasn't everything already on the table for season 50? Like what? Like that's why I don't get it with 51.
Yeah.
And you know, I'll be open to it, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
We're just a couple of old mans yelling at the cloud. Uh, quick couple hitters before we get out of here, Evan. Where does this season rank for you? I have it in the middle of the pack. I will give it as of now, granted it just ended, I give it a C plus to a B minus range. What do you give it?
I would definitely, I'll give it a B minus. I'll give it a solid B minus. I think it was slightly higher than a C plus. I wouldn't put it down that far.
Yeah, I don't think so
But
either.
I
I
mean,
regretted it when I
I am
said it.
with you that it's probably right in maybe a top 40% season.
Are there any players that you want to see back? I think we already hit on a couple. I want to see Q come back for sure. I want to see Rizzo
Yep.
come back, Jonthan, and I honestly, 10 years down the road, I wouldn't mind seeing Joe come back.
Yeah, you nailed it on the dot with Rizzo, and I really want to see Q back. He was kind of cut very early and screwed out of this, another screw from this season. But I think another guy that maybe didn't get a fair shake this season, I don't think we've mentioned him, is Charlie.
Oh,
I
that's
would
good
like to
going.
see Charlie back for a third time as well. I think Charlie, Q, and Rizzo are my three kind of new era players that were at 50 coming back. And I would never say no to Devins or Christian again. I would always, if they want to come back, I'll watch them.
Any other thoughts on Survivor 50, Evan, before we call this thing good?
Nothing besides that. I'm just, I'm glad that we could keep up with Survivor 50. We had been talking about it for multiple years before the fact. So I, even though it wasn't the greatest outcome that we had envisioned in our dreams,
Yeah.
it was great to follow along and get this moment. And now it's kind of a weight off our shoulders that it's over.
Yes, it is a weight off our shoulders. Maybe we will do some more Survivor videos. Like Evan said to me in a message, if anything else, this is good for the archives. So we will always have this, him and I. So thank you guys for watching this, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.